Hello again. This is Andrew Culkin, author of Amanda, A Cautionary Tale of Alcoholism. Today, I want to go over, again, my name is Andrew Culkin, but today I want to go over 5 things to understand the function of an inpatient rehabilitation facility, specifically for alcoholism, drug addiction, or similar mental health care issues where someone is struggling with an addiction that is interfering with their life and with the life of the addict's loved ones. So it's a family problem. As long as that person still has family and friends, everyone that they surround with. But 5 things to understand the function of an inpatient rehab. But the first thing I want you to understand because of the show Intervention, it would always have the family. If you've ever seen that, and they would give the addicted these ultimatums, ultimately forcing them into a 30, 60, or 90-day rehabilitation facility. In some ways, that's not really the best way to go. In some ways, people have no choice, and it's really about the family surviving and making the person realize that they will no longer be codependent. Their loved ones will no longer be codependent. But forcing somebody into a rehab for the wrong reasons may not have the success rate that one may be hoping for, because rehabilitation facilities are not a magic pill. They don't sprinkle magic sobriety dust over the person. It has to come from the person, and they have to put in the work. But number one of the 5 things to understand the function of an inpatient rehab is an inpatient rehab is not a magical pill of recovery. Okay, rehab is a jumping off point and an immediate tool to help the alcoholic and the family of the alcoholic. Everyone they're surrounded with, because they're all part of the problem. The time spent allows for the addicted to take a break from their addiction and surround themselves with like-minded addicts. It allows time for the self-discovery and self-realization, as well as a physical separation from the actual addiction, the alcohol or the drugs, for 30, 60, or 90 days, because they are really in a lockdown situation with a rehab, that they are physically separated from the addiction. Rehab is a tool to a new beginning for both the addicted and the loved ones attached to the addicted. Used properly and used successfully, it can be a watershed moment for both the addicted and the family of the addicted. Number 2, inpatient rehabs can be very expensive to both the alcoholic, and I'm sure they have to have insurance, or the insurance company itself. They generally run between $25,000 and $65,000. That's a big change up. A good median range is around $30,000 to $35,000 for a 30-day stay. I know there's some in Malibu. I live in California, but some in Malibu that are as high as $65,000. It's really for the rich and famous to go to, because a lot of insurance companies aren't going to cover that kind of cost. And unfortunately, some of those places tend to be more resort than rehab. They're more on the food you get and the swimming pool and the sauna than they are in the classes and the reason why you're there to begin with. But I digress. Median range, $35,000 for a 30-day stay in a addictive rehab facility. Make sure the alcoholic understands that the rehab's function is for recovery. And just like I was saying, it's not there for recreation. Okay, they might see it as a vacation, because essentially it is a vacation from their life, but they're there for working on themselves. They're working for self-actualization and understanding themselves. Where does the addiction come from? What is the core issue? If they're not working on that, they're kind of wasting their time. A patient who is committed to an inpatient stay must be there for the right reasons. In many cases, the rehab may be the addicted's last hope for recovery and even for life itself. The reality is some of these people are in a life or death situation. They may not realize it but they are. The third one is a 30, 60, or 90-day inpatient stay for addiction must be followed up aggressively with a continued outpatient AA meetings, group counseling, or something of that ilk, and individual counseling sessions. You also need an accountability partner. You need someone as a sponsor, so someone to talk to if you're in a situation where you're grappling with your addiction and you're not sure if you want to go over that threshold and actually have a relapse. So if you have somebody to talk to, an accountability partner is absolutely vital in the success of your sobriety. A rehab stay is nothing more than a starting point and an interruption in the life of the addicted. Without a rigorous follow-up plan, the entire process, the entire purpose of the original rehab stay is easily erased by patient relapse. Relapses can take effect as soon as a patient's first day of release. They could get out and be drunk the next day after spending all that time and energy, and it can happen. Follow-up should be strictly governed by the initial rehab or an assigned administrator working on the patient's behalf. This is where rehabilitation really fails. And through my experience, certainly with my wife, there was really no follow-up. There was no accountability by the rehab themselves. And a chronic rehab, they only have about a 5 to 10% success rate. So they have almost a guaranteed circle of clients who are going to come back to the rehab facility, which is kind of self-defeating in a lot of ways. So there has to be better aftercare. The aftercare is vital to the success of the entire process. Now, the fourth thing to understand the function of an inpatient rehab is one of the best experiences a patient can take away from a rehab is the close-knitted relationships that can be formed during their stay. Surrounding the addicted with like-minded and life-experienced people is the strongest path to recovery. We are what we surround ourselves with. And if we surround ourselves with people who are really taking their sobriety seriously, if you have 5 people and 4 of them are being successful with sobriety, you have a much better chance that that 5th person is also going to be successful with sobriety. It could be both ways. You could have 4 people that aren't successful, and the 5th one is going to be dragged down. But that's not generally the case. Certainly not after, bonding with these people inside. These types of relationships can be very effective in a long-term success with sobriety. Insiders can share bonding experiences that loved ones who are not addicts probably couldn't understand because they haven't gone through, the nightmare of being an addict and all the shame and all the problems that are attached to being an addict. But that's another story. The 5th thing to understand the function of an inpatient rehab is that relapse is a very real part of the alcoholic's recovery. There are many people who have attended several rehabs before they were able to find a life of sobriety. Unfortunately, the vast majority of alcoholics and addicts, multiple stays in a rehab is a sign of failure and an impending result of a much shorter lifespan. Rehabs are at the very least a gateway for an alcoholic to jumpstart their new life of sobriety. The addicted, however, must come to the conclusion that they are in a life or death struggle. Rehab aftercare is an ongoing activity that must and will last the natural life of the alcoholic. There are those who have been sober for 25 years and longer who still regularly attend AA meetings or similar activities. Unlike cancer, Alcoholism is a disease that will never go away for those who are addicted. In other words, the disease will be with that person until the day they die. And it's work that you're going to have to do. The alcoholic, the addicted, is going to have to work on themselves literally forever. The purpose of the rehab is to create a division from a lack of sobriety to sobriety. It's nothing more than a bridge for the person to get where they want to go. It's an interruption in their life. It's an intervention. It's an interruption. Used properly, it can be the focal point. It can be the watershed in that person's life. Used improperly, without aftercare, without the follow-up work, and the person is, they're going to be right back to where they were. There's no question. And that person will be in a life or death struggle, and it will only get worse. I hope that helps. Those are the 5 things to understand the real function of a rehab facility. Thanks for listening.